Back in the 2000s and 2010s, zombie related media was spiking at an all time high. We had Shaun of the Dead in 2004, Dawn of the Dead in 2004, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and Resident Evil. Even though that's not a really zombie movie, I'll still count it. These films were all cult classics that put their own 2 cents into the zombie genre. However, what if I told you that one show would lay the groundwork not only for the zombie genre, but also for cinema and pop culture alike? A show so culturally relevant that it outlived most shows released today and continues to impact pop culture. That show is The Walking Dead. To begin this video, I would like to note that I am only talking about Season 1 of The Walking Dead, not Season 2 through 11. You may be asking, why? Well, every season past Season 1 pales to comparison when it comes to the introduction of the show, the writing, the characters, and the environment. Everything is just not as amazing as Season 1, even though I really like Season 2. Season 1 of The Walking Dead is perfect and a masterpiece of storytelling and horror. And also because I do not want this video to become an hour long. Anyway, let's avoid the excessive yapping and begin our first chapter of this video. Please sit back and enjoy my reasons on why Season 1 of The Walking Dead is a masterpiece of television. The reason that Season 1 of The Walking Dead is considered a masterpiece is because of its realism and detailed storytelling about the characters and environment. The duo dynamic between Rick and Shane was amazing. Why? Because after Shane left Rick in the hospital after the military began executing civilians, we see that about 2 months later, Shane is with a group of survivors and has assumed Rick died at the hands of the military or the infected. We see Shane begin his love affair with Lori and attempt to become Carl's new father figure. But when Glenn saves Rick and brings him back to the group, we see Shane's reaction to seeing Rick alive. On one side, he feels happy that his best friend's alive. But on the other, he begins to realize that his love for Lori and Carl can no longer continue.
Why can't you back me up?
Look, I want to, it's just... I don't see it.
If it was your family, you'd feel differently.
What'd you say to me?
I kept them safe, man. I looked after them like they were my own. That's what I did, man.
I didn't mean it that way.
Well, how'd you mean it? Go on, man, how'd you mean it?
You misinterpreting me, man.
Right.
You're just hearing it wrong.
Yeah?
Look, you know I can never repay that debt, okay?
And that does not sit right with Shane. Then Rick slowly begins to become the leader of the group, and we see the clash between Rick and Shane's ideals and planning. It's perfection! We see that the cities are destroyed by the military or the dead. We see the remnants of other survivor groups, and we see how deadly the walkers really are. The show is realistic in its storytelling. No one is a badass who can kill massive amounts of walkers in one sitting. The infected are dangerous, and when they gather into hordes, they become an immovable threat that cannot be ignored. That's why it's so amazing. It feeds off realism in an unrealistic show. I always believe that if you want to write an unrealistic show, then you need to make sure it's realistic. Why? Because the audience is more inclined to believe the realism in the unrealistic. Or, in simple terms, the audience can suspend their level of disbelief if the show can realistically convey the unrealistic. Season 1 of The Walking Dead is one of the best shows when it comes to the psychology of its characters. Every character feels realistic and like they could possibly exist instead of being shoehorned into the show. Anyway, the different beliefs, appearances, backgrounds, and behavior of Rick's group feel so real, and that they could absolutely happen. We of course have Rick, Shane, Lori, Carl, Glenn, Daryl, Carol, Dale, Andrea, Sophia, T-Dog, Jackie, Amy, Jim, Morales, and Ed. Every single one of those characters feels dynamic with each other. They all have their own problems, solutions, fights, dialogue, and it's amazing to watch. The audience despised Ed and his treatment of Carol and Sophia, and everyone was happy to see Shane beat him up. But when we see Carol comfort Ed and take care of him, it brings disgust to the viewers because how could she be so friendly to her abuser? How could she care? And when we find out why Carol cut her hair, it makes the audience hate Ed even more. You see what I'm saying? The characters in the show feel as if they actually existed and had lives before the outbreak began. The same thing goes for Dale, Andrea, and Amy's relationship. Their father-daughter dynamic was amazing, and after Amy's death, when the camp was overrun, it is amazing to watch the relationship slowly fracture as Andrea begins to question the world they live in. I could go on and on about every single character in the show, but as to not prolong the video, I want to end this chapter with the final statement. If you have not gotten my point so far, the reason season 1 of The Walking Dead is so good is because of the characters and their realism. Every single character in the season feels realistic and grounded. No one is a superhero who saves the day. Everyone is just barely getting by with dog food and dirty water. It is amazing watching them bicker with each other because it is realistic that many different people will have different beliefs and living needs. Season 1 does an amazing job of telling the story of Rick and his journey through the outbreak. And one of the reasons it works so well is that the first 15 to 20 minutes are doing way more than people realize. The pilot opens with the apocalypse, but then it quickly shifts into what feels like a normal cop drama. That is genius. It gives us the zombie nightmare, then puts us back into the regular life before ripping it away again. It makes the outbreak feel even worse because we get to see the before energy for a little bit. At the beginning, we see Shane and Rick sitting around, eating lunch, joking around, and talking like actual partners. The conversation about their wives and marriage is such a small moment, but it adds so much depth.
What's the difference between men and women?
That's a joke.
No, serious.
Never met a woman who knew how to turn off a light. They're born thinking the switch it only goes one way, on. Then the same chick, mind you, she'll bitch about a global warming. See, this is when Reverend Shane wants to quote from the God Gospel and say, darling, maybe you and every other pair of boobs on this planet just figure out that the light switch, see, goes both ways. Maybe we wouldn't have so much global warming. You know?
It is not just a random dialogue. It shows who they are before the world ends. Rick sounds like a guy who's trying to understand what went wrong in his marriage with Lori, while Shane talks with that cocky, know-it-all attitude that later becomes a huge part of his character. He acts like he understands women and relationships better than Rick, and that attitude matters later when everything falls apart and Shane starts crossing lines. That conversation also adds world building because it reminds us these are not just zombie survivors yet. They're just two cops talking about life, women, and marriage problems during a shift. They are regular people with regular problems. So when the outbreak hits, it feels heavier because the show already gave them lives before the apocalypse. Then they get a call about an ongoing chase with suspects heading out of the city. Rick and Shane answer the call and set up a blockade to stop the suspect's car. Already the show's subverting your expectation. It is playing more like a cop show than a zombie story, and that is exactly what makes it amazing. Back to the story. After the suspect's car hits the spike strip they laid out and spirals into the field, the sound cuts out, and the tension rises. Where are the suspects? Who's going to shoot first? Where are they infected? All of these thoughts were going through my head when I first watched the show back in 2010. And I still think about it when I rewatch The Walking Dead. After Rick gets shot and we fade to black, we watch as Rick slowly wakes up and finds himself in the hospital room. As he struggles to get out of bed and begins to explore the hospital, the show holds no punches. We see the carnage, the horror, and the gore that happened while Rick was in a coma. It is amazing storytelling because it leads the viewer to question what happened while Rick was out and what happened to everyone else. And I really want to talk about the hospital lighting because it is one of the best parts of this whole sequence. The lighting does so much of the atmosphere work. You have these dim hallways, weak light coming in from windows, deep shadows, and areas that look almost dead before Rick even realizes what he's looking at. The hospital feels abandoned, sick, and wrong. It is not just dark for horror, it feels like life left that building a long time ago. When Rick finds the chewed up girl / body in the hallway, the lighting makes that moment even harder. The gore is already brutal, but the hallway is lit makes it feel cold and empty, like death has been sitting there for days. It's not flashy, quiet, or ugly or disturbing, and that's what makes it work. The hospital is basically telling the story before any character explains anything. As he keeps exploring the hospital, we see the iconic "Don't Open Dead Inside" door, which freaks Rick out and eventually sends him running out of the hospital. Before I continue, I want to say this. Everything leading up to this moment is shot beautifully. Frank Darabont was an amazing director and truly understood what made The Walking Dead so good. He understood the horror and grim nature of the world, and I wish he had continued to work on the show after season 2. As we leave the hospital and watch Rick witness the mass body fields in front of him, reality begins to set in. We see fear fill Rick's mind as he realizes that the world he once knew is now dead. We see him slowly panic, not only at the sight of the bodies and seeing his first walker, but at the realization that his family might be dead. As he struggles his way back home and returns to where he once lived, we get one of the best performances from Andrew Lincoln in the whole show.
God. Is this real? Am I here?
This acting alone made the audience realize the direness of the situation. He is no hero who gets to see his family. He is no hero who gets to save the day. He's just an ordinary small town cop who had bad luck and lost everything. Andrew Lincoln's performance is amazing, and he's one of the reasons why The Walking Dead is so good. I wish he had won awards for his performance, but unfortunately, good things do not happen to good men. Skipping on, when he meets his first 2 survivors, Morgan and his son, the story begins to unravel as we find out what happened to the world after Rick was shot and hospitalized. The dead rising, the virus spreading throughout the planet, and the fear of going out at night or leaving any window or door on board gave the audience this sense of dread. This sense that anything can happen to anyone. No matter who it is, the show is not safe for anyone, and that is one of the reasons why this show was so good. Skip ahead to when Rick is surrounded by the horde of walkers in the city. As Rick scrambles to climb under the tank and seek cover from the affected, he begins to realize that he is trapped. As hope begins to fade and Rick apologizes to his family before attempting to take his own life, he sees a hatch above him and enters it. This short moment of him almost taking his own life was amazing because it showed that he was afraid of the infected, afraid of being torn to pieces, and afraid of never seeing his family again, which is why he apologized after he thought he failed to find Lori and Carl. That character moment shows that Rick is not immortal or indestructible. He could die just as easily as everyone else. To wrap it all up, the reason season 1 of The Walking Dead is a masterpiece is not just because it has zombies, gore, or iconic moments. It is because it does everything well at the same time. It has realism in an unrealistic world. It has characters that feel like actual people instead of plot devices. It has storytelling that slowly builds dread, gives us world building without over explaining everything, and makes even small conversations matter. It has amazing directing, lighting, and atmosphere, especially in the pilot. And it has performances, especially with Andrew Lincoln, that make the world feel real and tragic. Season 1 makes the apocalypse feel real. That is why it works. That's why it still holds up. And that is why, in my opinion, Season 1 of The Walking Dead is a masterpiece of television.